For those of you who don't know about these types of things because you have a job, there's a climate change activist group called Just Stop Oil. Just Stop Oil is known for their controversial protests, if you can even call them protests. Really, they're just trying to make everybody mad. They've attempted to destroy priceless art. They've painted over 10,000-year-old historical monuments.
Hey, bro, come on now, dog. Come on, man.
They interrupt popular sports events, and sometimes they even glue their hands to the ground.
These are terrible, terrible scenes here at the Crucible.
Now, all the rage in the green world today is actually getting one of those pesky fossil fuel-based glues and sticking yourself to something as a form of protest. What happens when that goes wrong? Well, have a look at this. Here are some protesters gluing themselves to the floor at a Volkswagen dealership.
I'm Gianluca Grimalda. I'm a researcher in social psychology at a research institute in Germany, and I'm here in the Porsche pavilion in the Autostadt of Wolfsburg to denounce the responsibility of Volkswagen in the climate emergency that we are facing.
Yeah, it was actually a Porsche dealership owned by Volkswagen, I should point out. But it all went bad after that. You see, the organiser then tweeted, Volkswagen told us they supported our right to protest, but they refused our request to provide us with a bowl to urinate and defecate in a decent manner while we are glued, and they've turned off the heating.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
One of their most popular ways of protesting or just making people angry is blocking the road. And some people might think that blocking the road is pretty harmless, but if you think about it, it's far from it. You have thousands of people that might be late to work, doctors, lawyers, sometimes people with very important jobs, people missing appointments. I've seen a guy try to take his daughter to chemotherapy, but he couldn't get through. And even in more extreme cases, there was one lady that died in the ambulance because they were blocking the road.
What are they achieving?
Well, what they're saying is they want maximum disruption to stop the government extracting oil and gas.
Yeah, but that's cooking oil.
Here you have a woman who's tried to say goodbye to her mum, who's 90 years old. It would be the most important day potentially you've ever had in your life, I would think. And ends up with 10 minutes, a funeral lasting 10 minutes for her mother. And that's directly because of the Stop the Oil protests, which shut down the motorway. The best friend of her mother couldn't even get there to say goodbye to her great friend. Where does your disruptive tactic stop? And what, you're going to keep gluing yourself to things and stopping sporting events and lying in motorways and so on? Where do you go with this? Do you get ever more extreme? Do you get ever more disruptive? And what do you hope to achieve with it? Because at the moment, I'm not seeing anything.
Also, to most people, it can seem counterintuitive because if you're trying to stop climate change, why would you have thousands of cars idling in the road for hours? Regardless of if you think it's for the right cause, there are a lot of people that are sick of these protests and they're starting to take matters into their own hands.
Oh, Christ, here we go. Bloody teal voter. Just stop oil. I'll get in with the door. Just stop oil. Oil is king, mate.
I had to go to hospital from the appointment. I'm dead. Let me go. Stop interfering with us. Where's the police? What are we paying our taxes for? You know, have our life inconvenienced by these idiots. This is wrong. Time to stand up for what's right. In a free country, this doesn't happen. Get these people out the road. Get out the road. Get out there. Do your protest there, which don't inconvenience anyone. Right? Come on, rise up. 90% of people disagree with this. He hasn't got time.
I try to keep that grip strong, because if I gotta choke one of these hate motherfuckers out.
Having a laugh, looks like. No thanks. What's going on here?
The funniest part is most human beings want to help the environment. We just understand that it's a very complex issue. And a lot of these people who protest and they want change, sometimes they forget that just because your intentions are pure and the change you want to see doesn't mean that the change won't be devastating to a lot of people. For example, I believe that their intentions are pure when they protest in the street, but what's the result of it? You get CO2 emissions going into the atmosphere because thousands of cars are idling, and then you get people that can't make it to their mom's funeral. A lot of times people in developed countries can be blind to the privileges that they have. If we did go green like a lot of these climate activists say they want, there'd be billions of people in lesser developed countries that would die. If the world was to go green, we would need an extremely high amount of a mineral called cobalt, and mining for this mineral is ironically destructive to the environment. Not only that, but it's also unethical because it's mined by the hands of slave labor and children.
Siddharth Kara, who wrote that book on cobalt, who came on the podcast, it was one of the most heavy podcasts I've ever done. He's exposing how these people are living, how these 19-year-old mothers have babies on their backs and they're digging into these hills to get cobalt, and the dust is coming up, and it's horrific for them. Terrible health consequences. They're being poisoned, and they're making no money, and they have no electricity.
Yeah, and don't forget that those cobalt mines are not even owned by Africans. They're usually owned by, like,
Chinese.
Chinese.
Can we get this person out?
It's a peaceful protest.
To our leadership.
We have the largest military in the world. We spend over $1 trillion every year. And the state, your state of Missouri, is over half of people are in poverty. China is not our enemy. The climate crisis is. We need to be serious about the climate crisis.
To be fair, if you're protesting against climate change, China would be your #1 enemy. China emissions exceed all developed nations combined.
You can't make this shit up.
And I think that's where a lot of people have a problem with Just Stop Oil. They seem to be protesting and inconveniencing everybody's lives for issues that they don't even really understand.
One of your guys' values is economic equality. But how would you address the fact that certain third world countries need to use fossil fuels to get to a certain amount of economic development? Maybe it's not a reality for certain countries to completely eliminate fossil fuels. Do you think you guys are coming back from a privileged position in that sense?
Pardon me 1 second. If we could quickly get a look and see that, these are our representatives. We, the people, are the government. You guys are just our representatives.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
But the thing is, what was the question?
So the question is, how are you guys addressing economic equality if you guys want to get rid of fossil fuels?
I believe that that's a question for the leader.
Well, what do you think?
I think that I won't comment on that.
Another value that you guys have is racial justice. How does that relate with climate defiance?
Well,
I mean, as a progressive group, we believe all issues are aligned, kind of solidarity for everybody.
I don't really have a comment when it comes to race. I'm a universal believer. I believe in all people.
The planet is not just nature. It's not just, the planet is the people too. And so, that act against, racist systems of systemic racism.
Oh, you mean systemic racism like an African child paid damn near no money to mine cobalt by hand for mostly the profit of a Chinese company? In the first interview, when the guy couldn't answer the question, he said, that's a question for our leader. Let's see what the leader has to say.
For a lot of third world countries, they literally depend on these fossil fuels to depend their current level of stability and economic growth. And so I wanted to ask them, wouldn't ending fossil fuels directly go against their values of racial justice and economic equality?
Would you still want an entire world ban on fossil fuels if it means certain countries may not be able to use energy at all?
That's a good question. Actually, I don't know. I'm not the best person in the group to ask about this.
You're one of the leaders. Come on.
Shut your stupid ass up. For the leader of a movement, that wasn't very insightful. Now let's compare her answer to an average guy that just understands a little bit more of the nuances of the situation.
Are you completely against what they're supporting, or do you think it's just not a realistic outcome?
Most of the climate change issue
is about controlling our energy resources. Let's say they get off of fossil fuels and they put everybody on electricity, and we're all using electricity for everything. Well, all that has to be mined. Most of it's mined by slave labor in communist countries that are owned by dictators at very violent places, and I don't see why that's a better energy resource than fossil fuels. They make people money who take it out of the ground rather than being forced out of the ground, and there's a lot less exploitation involved in it, I think.
By the way, the guy who's doing these interviews has a YouTube channel called Jen. I highly recommend that y'all go and check out some of his content. It's super insightful, it's super clean, it's really well produced. I'll leave a link in the pinned comments down below. Some of these people that are part of these movements can hardly tell you what they're even protesting for, and it brings to question, what are they really in it for? There was a couple guys that had a YouTube channel and they infiltrated one of these groups, pretended to be a member so that they can counter-protest the protest. This is what they had to say about it.
Yeah, so we had a mole working in Just Stop Oil for about a week. So we were on all their secret communication groups. They use an app called Signal so that the police can't get involved. And we sent our mole protesting, and then they had this big banquet. So we got there just as their harpist was playing some tunes and a 100% plant-based meal was being served. We sent 4 actors with large orange balloons and very loud alarms. And it's 42 feet, as you say, so it's really quite hard to get them down.
Are you seriously against them? Do you think that they are wrong in what they do? Or is this part of your approach, which is being pranksters?
I think they're well-intentioned, and I just think that they've lost their way slightly. It was interesting. What our mole said to us after sort of being amongst them was it seemed that they were more interested in being rebels and their group that they'd formed, which felt like it was them against the world. And they were becoming more interested in being arrested and becoming the sort of face of a rebellion rather than actually wanting to tackle climate change. They would then, before going out to protest, they would ask for a show of hands who wanted to be arrested that day. So they know that they get warned by the police with the Section 28 notice, and then they wait until it's time to be arrested, and the people who want to be arrested then stay on the road instead of clearing off the road after the police warn them, and those people then get arrested and go spend the night in jail. So the intention is very much, we are going to get arrested today. I'm not sure what that's achieving. I know it's costing the police a huge amount of money, but that seems to be the tactic that Just Stop Oil are going for.
The point here is their tactics aren't doing anything to solve climate change, and if they carry on and the public keep being put off the cause, which polling shows that it is, climate change isn't going to be solved.
To wrap this whole thing up, if there's one thing consistent about human nature, it's taking the route of least resistance. Are you doing what's right, or are you doing what's easy? Because it's easy to protest in more developed countries like America and England than it is to deal with the countries that are actually causing all the emissions, like China. It's easy to be uneducated about a topic and stand in the middle of the street to protest to make yourself seem like a good person. It's easier to hold up a sign that says I want to save the environment than it is to study the issue and the nuances of the issue to come up with a viable solution. I just want people to understand that change can be good, but if you're not careful, change can be very bad. Let me know in the comments below if this video was a W or a L, and give me the HBO special. That's a Help Brother Out special. Hit the like and the subscribe button for more content. Till next time.